5 years. I returned to the capital with my son. Like a rat in the gutter. I only wanted to live a low-profile life. Who knew that in the blink of an eye, my adorable baby son was gone? I was scared out of my wits and searched like a madwoman. Guess what I saw? Hua. The old master who could dominate the capital with a flick of his wrist and make the entire business world tremble with a stomp of his foot. He was squatting down, looking incredulously at my little one, who wasn't shy at all and even reached out his little hand to touch his beard. My baby blinked his peach blossom eyes, which were exactly like mine, and curiously sized up the seemingly powerful grandpa in front of him. Then, maybe he thought this grandpa had gentle eyes. He tentatively called out in a soft voice, "Grandpa." Just that one grandpa. The living King Yama old master Hua, petrified on the spot. He stared intently at my son's face, as if trying to see through something, and suddenly gasped. The next second, his eyes were red, and his voice trembled, not to my son, but as if confirming a shocking fact. He looks so much alike. The eyes, the nose. He's Xian's kid, no doubt. This is my great-grandson. He hugged my baby tightly in his arms, shouting with wild joy, "My good great-grandson, my dear great-grandson." Immediately afterward, a roar containing endless joy and thunderous rage resounded through the sky. "Investigate for me. Anyone who dares to touch the mother of my Hua family's eldest great-grandson will be taken care of until they're dead. Throw them all out. Me. I'm done for." Hearing that, he not only acknowledged my son but also accepted me, the mother. Moreover, the child's father is actually Hua Xian, that legendary figure. It's probably harder than ascending to heaven to live a low-profile life now. My heaven-sent adorable grandson seems to have accidentally found me the strongest backer in the universe. My heart almost jumped out of my throat, and the blood in my whole body seemed to freeze. In front of the old Hua family mansion in the capital, the vermilion gates, as grand as those of an ancient royal palace, stood wide open, with several black-clad bodyguards standing like statues. And right in front of this intimidating symbol of power, a dramatic scene was unfolding. My 4-year-old son, Xianumi, who had just been chirping at my side wanting to buy candied hawthorns, was now tilting his little head, looking curiously at the old man squatting in front of him, and that old man Hua Jinting, the mainstay of the Hua family. A legendary figure who could make the business world in the capital and even the entire country tremble with a stomp of his foot was staring intently at my son with a look that I had never imagined. A look mixed with shock, ecstasy, and disbelief. Xianumi didn't seem afraid of this stern-looking grandpa. Instead, he was drawn to the meticulously trimmed silver-white beard on his chin, reaching out his chubby little hand as if wanting to touch it. Then, in the surrounding silence, Xiaonuomi blinked his pair of peach blossom eyes, inherited from me, clear and innocent, and with his soft, milky voice, tentatively, yet with a natural sense of intimacy, softly called out, "Grandpa." This grandpa was like an electric shock that instantly hit old Master Hua. His whole body froze, as if he had been paused. Time seemed to stand still for a few seconds. I hid behind the green belt not far away, barely daring to breathe. I saw old Master Hua's gaze, like the most precise scanner, inch by inch sweeping across Xiaonuomi's face. His breathing became rapid, his chest heaving violently. Suddenly, he took a sharp breath, as if he had discovered some priceless treasure, or as if he had confirmed a long-buried guess. He stared intently at Xiaonuomi's eyes, then looked at his nose, mouth, muttering to himself, his voice very soft. But I still vaguely heard a few words. Xian. Exactly the same. Xian. Hua Xian. That name that only existed on the covers of financial magazines and in business legends. That blurry figure from a chaotic night 5 years ago. Could it really be him? I felt a wave of dizziness. Almost unable to stand, Chao Nwomi's father is actually Husiyen. This realization shocked me more than being struck by lightning. Just as I was reeling from the shock, old Master Hu suddenly raised his head, his eyes already red, filled with glistening tears of excitement. He no longer muttered to himself, but used all his strength to utter a confirmation filled with boundless joy and trembling. He's like him, so like him, these eyes, this nose, he's that Siyan's kid seed. No mistake, this is my great-grandson. The words great-grandson were like a thunderclap, stunning the surrounding bodyguards and butler. The next second, old Master Hu tightly hugged the still somewhat bewildered Chao Nwomi into his arms, with a force as if he wanted to knead this rediscovered treasure into his bones. My good great-grandson, my dear great-grandson, let great-grandfather take a look. Good heavens, Hu Xinting actually has a great-grandson. He was so excited that he was incoherent, crying and laughing as he hugged Chao Nwomi, completely devoid of his usual dignity. Chao Nwomi was startled by this sudden enthusiasm, but feeling the warmth of the old man's embrace and that indescribable excitement, he did not cry, but blinked his big eyes and gently patted the old man's back, as if to comfort him. Great Grandpa, guided by the word great-grandson in old Master Hu's mouth, Chao Nwomi somewhat uncertainly mimicked and called out this more accurate title. Yes, yes, good great-grandson. Great-grandfather is here. Hearing this great-grandpa, old Master Hu trembled even more with excitement, holding Chao Nwomi and refusing to let go. Immediately after, as if remembering something, he suddenly raised his head, his still sharp eyes sweeping around, finally settling on the direction where I was hiding. I'm exposed, and let out a roar that shook the heavens. Find out how my great-grandson and his mother have lived these past 5 years. Who has bullied them? Don't let any of them off. Anne, immediately bring that bastard Husayan back. What happened to him back then? He couldn't even protect his own wife and children. Useless. From now on, this child's mother. He looked at me, his gaze complex, but with more of an undeniable protectiveness. She is the granddaughter-in-law that I, Hu Xinting, have recognized. Anyone who disrespects her is going against the Hu family. Notify everyone. Clean up the West Garden and let her and her son live there. Deploy the best security and provide 24-hour protection. In addition, investigate for me who forced my granddaughter-in-law and great-grandson to leave their hometown back then. Once you find out, give them hell. Break the arms and legs of the men and throw them out. And as for the women, make her disappear completely from the capital. My mind went blank. The development of events was completely beyond my control. I just lost a child. And when I found him, not only was he recognized as family on the spot, but I, the mother, was forcibly crowned with the title of Hu family's granddaughter-in-law. And I have to live in the core area of the Hu family. What shocked me the most was that little Nwomi's father was actually Husayan. That powerful, ruthless man, judging from the old man's words, Husayan back then seemed to be unaware of my existence, or rather, was there another reason for my departure? Little Nwomi seemed a little dazed by his great-grandfather's lion's roar, but he was quickly soothed by the powerful, protective aura emanating from his great-grandfather. He curiously poked his head out of his great-grandfather's arms, looked at me, and asked with a puzzled, childish voice, "Mommy, what is great-grandpa saying? Are we going to live in a big house?" I looked at Grandpa Hu, who was holding my son, his face filled with whoever touches my great-grandson and granddaughter-in-law, they'll wipe out their whole family. He had completely switched from king of hell to protective grandparent mode, and I wanted to cry but had no tears. My low-key life plan died. this adorable great-grandson status that fell from the sky. Along with this cosmic-level backer, its power is too overwhelming. I was practically invited into the Hu family's old mansion by the Hu family's butler and a group of servants. It would be more accurate to say that I was being coerced in a semi-forceful manner rather than invited. Grandpa Hu held little Nwomi as if he were holding a rare treasure, refusing to let go for even a moment, constantly calling him sweetheart, good great-grandson. Little Nwomi seemed to like this newly recognized great-grandfather very much, and wasn't afraid of strangers at all. He leaned his little head on the old man's shoulder, curiously examining the magnificent mansion that resembled a palace. I followed behind, my mood as tangled as a ball of yarn. On one hand, I felt relieved that my son had found support, but on the other, I worried about the future and that man, Husayan, Chiyuan. A detached small building next to the Hu family's main residence was located in a secluded and elegant environment, with an interior decoration that was understatedly luxurious to the extreme. The butler, Lin Bo, respectfully introduced me. Madam, this will be your and young master's residence from now on. The old master has instructed that all expenses for you and the young master will be at the highest standard. If you need anything, please feel free to ask. Madam, this address made my cheeks burn. But my heart was filled with mixed feelings. I opened my mouth, wanting to explain that my relationship with Husayan was not that simple, but old master Hu was already holding little Nwomi on the soft sofa in the living room, beginning his dote on grandson plan. Lin Bo, bring the jade chessboard from the previous dynasty from my study and let my great-grandson play marbles with it. Lin Bo's mouth twitched slightly, but he still respectfully replied, yes, old master. Also, take those few pieces of top-quality jadeite rough that I've collected and find the best craftsman to carve some small animals for my great-grandson to play with. Lin Bo, yes, old master. By the way, I remember there's still a vacant lot behind the mountain, isn't there? Immediately get someone to build an exclusive playground for my great-grandson. The biggest one, the safest one. Build a small zoo inside. Raise some gentle deer and rabbits, so my great-grandson has something to play with every day. Lin Bo, yes, old master. I was dumbfounded, using a national treasure-level jade chessboard as marbles, carving toys out of top-quality jadeite rough, building a private zoo. Is this how top wealthy families spoil their kids? It's too inhumanely lavish. Little Nwomi understood playground and small animals and clapped his hands happily. Yay! Thank you, great-grandpa. Great-grandpa is the best. Oh, my good grandson. Old Master Hu was overjoyed, and the wrinkles on his face deepened with his smile. As long as you like it, great-grandpa will pluck the stars from the sky for you. Looking at this harmonious scene of affectionate grandfather and grandson, I silently swallowed the explanation that had reached my lips. Never mind. There's no point in saying anything now. I'll wait for Husayan to come back and clear up what happened back then. At this moment, the family doctor team arrived. 7 or 8 people, carrying various sophisticated instruments. With an array comparable to a small hospital, they respectfully greeted old Master Hua and then began to carefully give little Nwomi a full-body checkup. Little Nwomi was very well behaved. Although he was a little afraid of injections, he was held by old Master Hua, listening to his great-grandfather's gentle coaxing, and just pursed his lips, but finally bravely stretched out his little arm. The results of the examination came out quickly. Little Nwomi was in good health, just slightly malnourished. When old Master Hua heard this, his face immediately darkened. He turned his sharp gaze to me. Have you been living a hard life these past 5 years? I lowered my head, feeling a little embarrassed, but still nodded honestly. It's been a little hard. Back then, I was framed, my reputation ruined, and I was kicked out of my family with nothing. These past 5 years, I've been evading potential pursuers while raising Xiaonuomi on my own. It hasn't been easy. I worked desperately, learned new knowledge, and obtained various certifications, eventually becoming a decent chemical materials researcher my major. And life slowly improved. But compared to a top-tier wealthy family like the Huas, it's naturally worlds apart. Old Mr. Hu was silent for a few seconds, then patted my shoulder heavily, his tone carrying a hint of almost imperceptible guilt and even more determination. Child, you've suffered. From today on, with great-grandpa here, no one will ever think of bullying you and your son again. Lin Bo. Yes. Old master. Immediately draw up a nutritional meal plan for me. Hire the best nutritionist team, and make sure to fatten up my great-grandson within a month. Also, go and invite the 10 best children's illustrators in the capital and have them live here, drawing my great-grandson every day and recording every bit of his growth. Contact that largest pet base in the suburbs and ask if they are willing to sell the whole thing. I want to buy it and turn it into my great-grandson's exclusive pet paradise. Me. I can understand the nutritionist team. I can barely accept the illustrators. But buying the entire pet base. Old master, isn't your doting on your grandson a bit too exaggerated? Xiaonuomi was overjoyed, hugging old Mr. Hu's neck and giving him a kiss. Great-grandpa is so good. Nuomi loves great-grandpa the most. Ha ha ha. Good. Good. Old Mr. Hu was so flattered he couldn't find north, hugging Xiaonuomi and beaming from ear to ear. Looking at this inhumanly extravagant yet extremely heartwarming scene before me, the unease in my heart seemed to dissipate a little. Perhaps this isn't bad. At least Xiaonuomi won't have to suffer with me anymore. But that Husayan who is about to be summoned back, does he know about my existence? How will he see me? How should we get along? The news that the Hu family had found their long-lost eldest great-grandson, and that the mother of this eldest great-grandson had also been personally certified by the old master as the grandson's wife, spread like wildfire throughout the core circle of the Hu family in just half a day. In an instant, undercurrents surged. In the evening, the Hu family mansion was brightly lit, but the atmosphere was somewhat heavy. Old Mr. Hu sat in the main seat, holding Xiaonuomi, who had already played herself out and was sleeping soundly in his arms. With an unprecedented gentleness on his face, below him sat several core figures of the Hu family. Old Mr. Hu's second son, Hu Jianjun, the current president of Hu's group, was a middle-aged man who looked gentle and refined, but whose eyes were very shrewd. Old Mr. Hu's third son, Hu Jianbang, who controlled the Hu family's overseas business, had an even more sharp temperament. There were also several uncles and elders from the Hu family's collateral branches, each of whom was a prominent figure in their respective fields. They looked at the delicate little dumpling in the old man's arms with varied expressions, some curious, some surprised, and some with undisguised scrutiny. I, as the center of the event, sat somewhat awkwardly in the seat below old Master Hu. Is everyone here? Old Master Hu said softly, his voice not loud, but with inherent authority. Everyone nodded. I called everyone here today because I want to formally announce something. Old Master Hu gently patted little Nuomi's back, his gaze sweeping across the crowd. This is my great-grandchild, Nuomi. This lady next to her is Nuomi's mother, Su Wanqing, who is also the granddaughter-in-law that I, Hu Jinting, have acknowledged. His tone was calm, but with an unquestionable weight. Hu Jianjun was the first to speak, with a gentle smile on his face. Dad, don't worry. We will naturally abide by your decision. This child really looks like eldest brother, referring to old Master Hu's eldest son, who has passed away when he was young, and is almost identical to Si Yan when he was little. Hu Jianbang also nodded. If he's Si Yan's child, our Hu family will naturally recognize him. These 5 years must have been hard on you, niece-in-law. Hearing the name Husayan spoken with such certainty, and linking it to little Nwolmi's identical appearance, the last bit of hope in my heart was shattered. It really was him. The man from that night 5 years ago, the Hua family's leader who existed only in financial legends, was actually little Nwolmi's father. This fact, cruel and absurd, left me unable to process it for a moment, and my heart skipped a beat. Old Master Hua seemed to see my awkwardness. But he thought I was nervous about facing Husayan, so he patted the back of my hand reassuringly. Wan Qing, don't worry, when that brat comes back, I will definitely make him give you an explanation. If he dares to bully you, Grandpa will be the first to not spare him. Dad. Does Si Yen know about this? Hu Jianjun asked cautiously. Humph. He's still abroad dealing with messes. I've already had someone notify him. Within 3 days. He must roll back here to see me. Old Master Hua's anger had not subsided. 5 years. He couldn't even find out where his own wife and child were in 5 years. Useless. Everyone. Only you, Old Master, can scold CEO Hua, who can turn clouds into rain. As useless. These 5 years have been hard on Wan Qing. Hu Jianjun turned to me, his attitude very gentle. We're family now. If you need anything, just tell second uncle. Hu Jianbang also rarely showed a hint of a smile. Yes. Just give a shout if you need anything. The other uncles also expressed their views one after another, with words that revealed acceptance and goodwill towards little Nwolmi and me. I know that while Old Master Hua's authority is certainly a factor, the more important reason is probably little Nwolmi's existence. This child, who looks so much like Husayan, is a reason they can't refuse, especially with Old Master Hua getting older and Husayan still unmarried. The appearance of Xiao Nwolmi undoubtedly injected new hope and cohesion into this enormous family. Just then, Xiao Nwolmi, still asleep, smacked his lips and mumbled incoherently. Mommy, want cuddles. Everyone's attention instantly focused on Xiao Nwolmi. Old Master Hua immediately and carefully adjusted his position to make him sleep more comfortably. Hu Jianjun and Hu Jianbang exchanged a look, both with a hint of something called softness in their eyes. Even those usually stern uncles and elders seemed to have a slight upturn at the corners of their mouths. I watched these tycoons, who could usually shake the business world with a stomp of their feet, now holding their breath because of a child's unconscious babbling, and a strange feeling suddenly arose in my heart. Perhaps Xiao Nwolmi really is a gift from heaven to me. He not only healed my 5 years of pain, but also seems able to melt the ice in this cold, wealthy family. These bigwigs seem to be collectively trending towards becoming grandson slaves, child slaves. The next few days, I felt like I was living in a dream. Old Master Hua practically kept Xiao Nwolmi glued to him, taking him everywhere he went. The once solemn and imposing Hua family mansion underwent a sudden change in style. On the lawn, there were brightly colored slides and swings. In the corridors, soft, non-slip carpets were laid. In the dining room, all kinds of cute cartoon tableware were added. Even Old Master Hua's study, which was comparable to a small museum, was allowed to be explored by Xiao Nwolmi, on the condition that he didn't touch those broken stones that great-grandpa uses to prop up the table legs, priceless antiques. And Xiao Nwolmi fully utilized his superpower of melting hearts. He smiled sweetly at everyone and greeted them in a milky voice. When he saw Hu Jianjun, he would tilt his little head and ask, "Second Grandpa, are you going to earn lots and lots of money today to buy candy for Nwolmi?" One sentence made this decisive president in the business world beam with joy, and he immediately instructed his secretary, "Go and buy back all the flavors of imported fruit candies on the market." When he saw the stern Hu Jianbang, Xiao Nwolmi would blink his big eyes. "Third Grandpa, why is your face so fierce? Are you unhappy? Nwolmi will blow on it for you." As he said that, he pursed his little lips and gently blew on Hu Jianbang's cheek. Hu Jianbang stiffened all over, and on that face that had been frozen for years, there was actually a hint of cracking. He turned his face away uncomfortably, but the roots of his ears quietly turned red. As for those uncles and elders, they were completely captured by Xiaonuomi. Toys, snacks, limited edition children's clothing, all kinds of gifts piled up in the living room of the West Garden. They even secretly competed over who gets to play building blocks with the young master today. I watched these bigwigs, with an average age of over 50, surrounding a little baby, vying to show their affection, and I felt both amused and warmed. Is this what they call being completely obsessed with your child? The arrival of Xiaonuomi was like a ray of warm sunshine, illuminating the seemingly glorious but inevitably somewhat cold depths of this wealthy family. Even the servants, who might have initially been suspicious of me, this woman of unknown origin, became exceptionally warm and respectful after seeing Xiaonuomi's adorable and invincible appearance. Madam, this is freshly stewed bird's nest, to nourish you and the young master. Madam, the young master's clothes are washed, all by hand with the mildest baby laundry detergent. Madam, feel free to ask if you need anything. Please don't hesitate. From my initial apprehension, I gradually relaxed. This feeling of being carefully cared for and cherished, I had not experienced in the past 5 years. Although the source of all this is Xiaonuomi, but looking at my son's innocent smile and feeling the kindness emanating from the people around me, the ice in my heart seemed to be melting little by little. This day, old Master Hua, on a whim, said he wanted to teach Xiaonuomi calligraphy himself. In the study, rice paper was laid out, and ink was prepared. Old Master Hua taught Xiaonuomi how to hold the brush. Hand in hand, Xiaonuomi's little hands were chubby, holding a brush almost as tall as him. Looking very comical, he imitated his great-grandfather, dipped the brush in ink, and then on the paper, drew a big turtle. Great-grandfather, look. Nuomi drew it. Xiaonuomi raised his masterpiece as if presenting a treasure. Old Master Hua looked at the ink-splattered turtle. Not only was he not angry, but he laughed heartily. Good, 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 well drawn, full of momentum, worthy of being Hua Zhenting's great-grandson. Someone, frame this painting for me, hang it on my bedside. Everyone. Old Master, are you serious? I looked at the abstract turtle picture, and then at Xiaonuomi with a proud face and Old Master Hua with a "my grandson is the best in the world" expression, and couldn't help but laugh. The sunlight shone in through the huge French windows, falling on the grandfather and grandson, the scene as warm as a painting, perhaps. Accepting all this is not so difficult. Just then, Butler Lin Bo walked in hurriedly, his expression somewhat complicated. Old Master. He paused, glancing at me beside him. Young Master Sion is back. My heart jumped suddenly. That man, Xiaonuomi's biological father, Hua Sion, is back. 5 years. Finally. Are we going to meet? I'm not ready yet. Hua Sion is back. The owner of this name, as if wrapped in frost and thunder, stepped into the old Hua family mansion. The atmosphere in the living room instantly dropped to freezing point. Even old Master Hua, who was originally holding Xiaonuomi and making him laugh, had a serious look on his face. But in that seriousness, there was an imperceptible hint of expectation. I nervously clenched the hem of my clothes, my heart beating wildly uncontrollably. The sound of footsteps grew from far to near, steady and strong, each step like stepping on the tip of my heart. Then, that man who only existed in my vague memory and the financial headlines appeared at the living room entrance. A black, custom-tailored suit enveloped his tall and slender frame, broad shoulders and a narrow waist. Like a walking advertisement, his sharply defined face was like God's most perfect masterpiece. His deep eyes like a cold pool, devoid of any warmth. a high-bridged nose, thin lips pressed tightly together. He exuded a powerful aura that kept strangers at bay. His appearance seemed to suck all the air out of the entire space. He was Hwasian. 5 years had passed, and he was more stern and even more awe-inspiring than I remembered. His gaze quickly swept across the living room, past Grandpa Hua, past second uncle and third uncle, and finally, landed precisely on me, Anne, on little Nwolmi, who was being held in Grandpa Hua's arms, opening a pair of eyes that were extremely similar to his, curiously sizing him up, when his gaze touched little Nwolmi's fair and adorable face. The expression that had been frozen for ages seemed to show a subtle crack. His footsteps faltered. In his eyes, for the first time, an emotion other than coldness appeared: shock, doubt, and a hint of, even he himself hadn't noticed, a throb of emotion. You worthless thing. You still know how to come back. Grandpa Hua broke the silence first, his voice loud and filled with anger. Get over here. Hwasian retracted his gaze, slowly walked to the center of the living room, and nodded slightly. Grandpa, I'm back. His voice was deep and magnetic, with a hint of fatigue from just getting off the plane, but still full of strength. Humph. Do you even have me? Your grandfather. In your eyes. Grandpa Hua pointed at little Nwolmi in his arms. Take a look. Who is this? Hwasian's gaze turned to little Nwolmi again. This time, he looked more closely. Little Nwolmi seemed a little frightened by his cold aura, and shrank back into Grandpa Hua's arms, but those big eyes still bravely and curiously looked back at him. Eyes met, one large, one small. 2 pairs of deep eyes that were almost identical. Time seemed to stand still again. Hwasian's brow furrowed almost imperceptibly. This child, why is he so much like him? And the way he looks at him, why does it carry an indescribable sense of familiarity? Who is he? Hwasian's voice carried a hint of almost imperceptible hoarseness for the first time. He seemed to have guessed something, but still needed confirmation. Who is he? You still have the nerve to ask me who he is? Grandpa Hua was so angry that he was blowing his beard and glaring. Hwasian. You look closely. This is your son. My own great-grandson. Hua Nwolmi. Son. Even though he had a guess in his heart, hearing the word son with his own ears, Hwasian felt like he had been struck by a thunderbolt, and his tall body swayed almost imperceptibly. His sharp eyes, which could see through people's hearts, stared fixedly at little Nwolmi, then suddenly turned to me. His eyes were filled with shock, like a stormy sea, an inquiry, and a hint of disbelief. My son. He almost squeezed the words out from between his teeth, his gaze like a knife, as if trying to see through me. Su Wanqing. My heart beat faster, and I met his gaze nervously. Yes, I met his eyes, trying to appear calm, but the slight trembling of my fingertips betrayed my nervousness. 5 years ago. It was you. His voice was even colder, with a sense of being concealed from. Deceived. Anger and confusion. Yes. I nodded with difficulty. Why didn't you tell me? He stepped closer, the powerful pressure making it almost impossible for me to breathe. Why did you take my son and disappear for 5 years? His eyes were no longer the coldness from before, but were tinged with a complex emotion, with anger, incomprehension, and a hint of deeply hidden pain. 5 years. Judging by his tone, he seemed to have been looking for me all along. The thought sent a jolt through my heart. I opened my mouth, wanting to explain the misunderstanding of that year, wanting to tell about the conspiracy against me, but under his scrutinizing gaze, I couldn't say a word. The events of that year were too complicated, and too unbearable. I didn't even know if he had been aware of it back then. Enough. Old Master Hu slammed his hand on the table, interrupting the tense confrontation. I will investigate what happened back then. Now, you look carefully. This is your son, Nuomi. Come here. Call him Daddy. Old Master Hu put little Nuomi down and nudged him forward. Little Nuomi looked at the suddenly appearing man who looked fierce but also resembled himself, then looked at his expectant great-grandfather, and then at me. Somewhat hesitantly, he took small steps towards Husayn, raised his little head, and tentatively called out timidly, Daddy. That softened Daddy was like the softest feather, gently brushing against the hardest corner of Husayn's heart. His tall frame stiffened suddenly, looking at the small in front of him who was like a miniature version of himself, with clear and innocent eyes. Calling him Daddy in such a dependent and slightly fearful tone. Husayn's heart, which had been frozen for many years, seemed to crack open. Some kind of warmth, an emotion he had never felt before, quietly surged up. He had been searching for 5 years, searching for that audacious woman who had left a strong and colorful mark on his life and then disappeared without a trace. He had imagined countless scenarios of their reunion, angry questioning, cold punishment, but he had never imagined that, upon seeing each other again, she would be with a child who was connected to him by blood. A child who called him Daddy. Husayn squatted down. The action surprised everyone present, including Old Master Hu, and including myself. That aloof and indifferent Hu family head would actually take the initiative to lower his posture to look at a child at eye level. He reached out, as if wanting to touch Zayanuma's cheek, but stopped abruptly just before making contact. As if afraid his coldness would harm this fragile little life. His fingertips trembled slightly. Are you called Nuomi? His voice lost its previous coldness, becoming somewhat cautious. Zayanumi nodded, her big eyes blinking. Mommy calls me Zayanumi, your mother. Husayn's gaze shifted to me, his expression complex and unreadable. Has she been good to you these past 5 years? Zayanumi immediately nodded vigorously, her tone filled with pride. Mommy is the best to me. Mommy tells Nuomi stories, makes delicious food for Nuomi, and protects Nuomi. Childlike words, but the most sincere. Husayn looked at me, the coldness in his eyes seeming to melt away, replaced by a deeper, more complex emotion. He was silent for a few seconds, then slowly stood up. He didn't look at Zayanumi again, but locked his gaze firmly on me. Su Wanqing. He spoke my name, walking towards me step by step. The powerful sense of oppression returned, and I subconsciously took a step back. But he didn't let up, until he forced me into a corner, with nowhere to retreat. He reached out, his cold fingertips gently lifting my chin, forcing me to meet his eyes. 5 years. His thin lips parted slightly, his voice low and dangerous. You've kept me in the dark for so long. I looked at his handsome face so close, smelled the faint cedar scent on him, mixed with a hint of travel-worn weariness, and my heart pounded like a drum. I tried to explain. Back then. I'll investigate what happened back then. He interrupted me, his dark eyes bottomless. But the fact remains that you disappeared for 5 years with my son. Su Wanqing. He leaned down, his warm breath brushing against my ear, with an undeniable domineering air. What do you plan to do to repay what you owe me? I was speechless. Yes. No matter what happened back then, I did deprive him of his rights as a father for 5 years. What do you want? My voice trembled slightly. He looked at me, his eyes deep, as if he wanted to suck me in. After a long time, the corners of his mouth curved into a very faint, yet devastatingly charming arc. Punish you. His voice was low and magnetic, with a hint of seduction. Punish you. to stay by my side. For a lifetime. Use all the time you have left to compensate me and our son for these missing 5 years. Me. What? This is punishment. This is clearly a disguised confession and confinement. I looked at him in shock, not knowing how to react for a moment. In the living room, Elder Master Hu stroked his beard with satisfaction, revealing a gratified smile that said, "He is a promising young man." Hu Jianjun and Hu Jianbang exchanged glances, and they both saw a hint of watching a good show in each other's eyes. Little Sticky Rice looked at me, then at Hu Xian, tilted his head, and asked in a childish voice, "Daddy, will you and Mommy be together forever? Does that mean Sticky Rice can see Daddy and Mommy every day?" Hu Xian released me, turned around, and squatted down again. This time, his movements were much more natural. He reached out and gently touched Little Sticky Rice's head. Yes. He looked at Little Sticky Rice, his eyes filled with unprecedented tenderness. From now on, Daddy, Mommy, and Sticky Rice, our family will always be together. Yay. Little Sticky Rice jumped up happily, hugged Hussein's neck, and planted a loud kiss on his face. Hussein's body visibly stiffened for a moment, but this time, he didn't push him away. Instead, he awkwardly patted Little Sticky Rice's back, looking at the heartwarming, or was it, scene of father and son recognizing each other. I felt my brain was a little overwhelmed. Is it resolved just like that? 5 years of estrangement and misunderstanding, resolved by a domineering punishment and a kiss from his son. Should I be grateful that I gave birth to a chosen one who not only found himself the strongest backer but also conveniently won over his father? Isn't this plot development a little too dreamy? But looking at Hu Xian, whose expression was still stern but whose eyes subtly melted the frost, and Little Sticky Rice's heartfelt, radiant smile, my heart softened inexplicably. Perhaps staying by his side, being a family together, isn't unacceptable, at least for Little Sticky Rice. Hussein's return made the atmosphere in the Hu family's old mansion subtle. On one hand, there was the continuous joy brought by Little Sticky Rice, the happy fruit. On the other hand, there was the 5-year estrangement and misunderstanding between Hussein and me that hadn't been fully resolved. Grandpa Hu seemed determined to bring us together, not only ordering Hussein to move back to the old mansion but also creating various opportunities for chance encounters and alone time. For example, arranging for us to send Little Sticky Rice to the newly found top kindergarten together. For example, having Hussein conveniently pick me up and drop me off at my newly arranged workplace at Top-Notch Materials Research Institute under the Hu Corporation as a scientific research consultant. And then, after dinner, having the servants accidentally take Little Sticky Rice away, leaving Hussein and me facing each other in the huge living room. Hussein seemed to acquiesce to Grandpa's arrangements. He didn't say much, and was still stern, but he was visibly much gentler with Little Sticky Rice. He would patiently play building blocks with Little Sticky Rice, though his expression remained serious. His eyes were focused and gentle. He would awkwardly tell Little Sticky Rice stories before bed, though his voice was monotonous and emotionless. Little Sticky Rice listened with relish. He would even be the first to rush over when Zayanumi accidentally fell, carefully checking her for injuries. His anxious demeanor a far cry from the composed and strategic CEO Hu of ordinary days. But towards me, his attitude was somewhat complicated. He was no longer as aggressive as he had been when he first returned, but neither was he overly affectionate. He would silently help me open the car door, subtly turn my favorite dishes to face me at the dinner table, and provide precise advice when I encountered difficulties in my work. My research project happened to be related to a certain field of Hu's corporation. His concern was hidden in the details, silent and profound, but I knew that between us, there was still that night 5 years ago. And the reason why I ran away with the baby. That night, After Zionumi fell asleep, Hwasian stopped me. "Let's talk in the study," he said in a low voice. My heart tightened, knowing that what was coming would eventually come. The main light in the study was not on. Only a floor lamp was lit. The light was dim, and the atmosphere was a little oppressive. Hwasian handed me a document. "Take a look." I took it over with suspicion and opened it. Inside was a detailed investigation report on the conspiracy against me 5 years ago. The Hwa family's efficiency was indeed amazing. The report detailed how my STE mother, Su Meiling, colluded with my then best friend, Lin Weiwei, to drug me when I attended an important industry exchange cocktail party. They originally planned to send me to the bed of an old man they had arranged, take compromising photos, and completely ruin me, so that they could embezzle the inheritance left by my mother. However, things went awry. That night, Hwasian also attended the cocktail party and was also secretly drugged with a similar substance, a despicable tactic by business rivals. He struggled to leave, but went to the wrong room and accidentally entered the room I had been sent to. The report also included bank statements of Su Meiling and Lin Weiwei, as well as how they spread rumors afterward, bribed the media, and ultimately do all the dirt on me, which led to my being kicked out of the family by Grandpa Su, my biological grandfather, but biased towards my stepmother and uncle in a fit of rage. I felt cold all over, and my fingers were trembling as I read. So, that's how it was. It turned out that we were both victims back then. So, you left back then because you were expelled from the Su family, penniless, and didn't know you were pregnant. Hwasian looked at me, his eyes deep, with a hint of pity. Yes. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and when I opened them again, all that remained in my eyes was relief and a hint of bitterness. After I was kicked out of the house, I found out I was pregnant. I didn't dare to go back, and I didn't know who the father of the child was. I was even more afraid that Su Meiling and Lin Weiwei would harm the child if they found out. So I could only secretly give birth to Nwomi, go far away, and live under an assumed name. I said it calmly, but only I knew the hardships and fears of raising a child alone for the past 5 years. Hwasian was silent. Only the shallow breathing of the two of us remained in the study. For a long time, he reached out and gently grasped my cold, trembling hand. His palm was large and warm, carrying a reassuring power. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice hoarse. "I should have found you sooner back then. If I had investigated earlier, you wouldn't have suffered so much with Nwomi." His apology was sincere and heavy. My eyes instantly turned red. 5 years of grievances, sorrows, and hardships seemed to find an outlet at this moment. Tears streamed down uncontrollably. Hwasian didn't speak, only quietly holding my hand. His other hand, a little clumsily, gently wiping away the tears on my face. His fingertips were calloused, but his movements were exceptionally gentle. The Su family and Lin Weiwei. A glint of coldness flashed in his eyes. "I will take care of it." At that moment, the invisible layer of ice between us seemed to melt completely, not only because the misunderstanding was resolved, but also because of the undisguised possessiveness and apology in his eyes. Hwasian's way of taking care of it was simple, crude, but extremely effective. Not many days later, the Su group was exposed for major financial scandals and tax evasion, with my uncle and stepmother, Su Meiling, as the main culprits. At the same time, Lin Weiwei was also exposed for a series of scandals such as interfering in other people's marriages and academic fraud, ruining her reputation. The Su family was in complete chaos. Old Master Su was overwhelmed and tried every means to smooth things over, but found himself hitting walls everywhere, with everyone avoiding the Su family like the plague. It was then that he vaguely heard that behind all of this, there seemed to be the shadow of the Hwa family. The Hua family. Which Hua family? When he learned that it was the all-powerful Hua family in Beijing, he was so frightened that he almost fainted on the spot. The Su family's assets were not even enough to fill a tooth gap in front of the Hua family. How could they have provoked this great Buddha? It wasn't until his unsuccessful son, my uncle, said in despair that all of this might be related to the granddaughter he had driven away 5 years ago, Su Wanqing. That old master Su suddenly woke up. Su Wanqing, the Hua family. Could it be? Old Master Su did not dare to delay and immediately prepared generous gifts, personally bringing the weeping Su Miling and my terrified uncle to the front of the Hua family's old mansion, wanting to plead for forgiveness with thorns on their backs. However, they couldn't even get through the Hua family's gate. Butler Lin only conveyed Old Master Hua's words indifferently through the gate. The Old Master said that Miss Su is now the Hua family's granddaughter-in-law. The Hua family has remembered the past grievances. The Su family should take care of themselves. A phrase, the Hua family's granddaughter-in-law. And a phrase, the Hua family has remembered the past grievances, had already made the Hua family's attitude clear. Old Master Su's face turned ashen. He knew that the Su family was finished. He looked at the tightly closed Hua family gate, regretting it to the point of wishing he could disembowel himself. Back then, how could he have been so blinded by greed, listening to the slander of his stepwife and second son, driving away the most promising and most like his late wife of all his grandchildren without asking questions? If he had done a little investigation back then, if he had protected Wanqing back then, the Su family wouldn't have ended up like this today. Maybe they could have even climbed onto the towering tree that is the Hua family. Su Miling even collapsed to the ground, crying my name and begging me for forgiveness. I stood by the window on the second floor of West Garden, coldly watching the farce unfolding below. Hua Xian stood behind me at some point, gently putting his arm around my shoulders. Feeling better? He asked in a low voice. I shook my head, then nodded. I wouldn't say I felt much better, just that I found it all laughable. If they knew what was coming, why did they act that way in the first place? What will happen to them? I asked softly. The law will give them a fair trial. Hua Xian's tone was calm. As for the rest of the Su family, as long as they behave themselves, the Hua family won't go to extremes. He paused, adding, but they can't expect to be as successful as they were before. I leaned against him, feeling the warmth and strength of his chest, and my heart was filled with peace. Everything in the past could finally be let go. Those who had hurt me in the past had received their due punishment, and I had Nuomi, the solid backing of the Hua family. Anne, this man beside me who was starting to learn to be gentle. My future was bright. After settling down in the Hua family, I didn't choose to be a kept woman. 5 years of independent living had taught me the importance of having my own career. Mr. Hua and Hua Xian also expressed their support for this. My Hua family's granddaughter-in-law can't just be a pretty face. Mr. Hua waved his hand. Wanqing is doing scientific research, right? Xian, arrange a position for your wife and let her do something she enjoys. So, I joined the new Material Research Institute under the Hua Corporation as a senior research consultant. This was a research institution with a high reputation both domestically and internationally, bringing together many top talents. At first, the people in the research institute had a lot of opinions about me. The parachuted Mrs. Hua. Everyone didn't say it out loud, but their eyes were filled with contempt and suspicion, thinking that I was just a pretty face who got in through connections to gild myself. Some people even whispered behind my back, saying that I was elevated by my son, and that I was useless except for giving birth to a good son. I didn't care about this and just silently devoted myself to my work. My major was polymer chemistry and physics. Although life had been difficult for the past 5 years, I had never given up learning and research. Soon, a tricky project was placed in front of the research institute. Hua Corporation was developing a new type of superconducting material, but it encountered a bottleneck in the key issue of stability. Several core teams had been working on it for months, but there was no progress. This project was related to the corporation's strategic layout for the next few years, and Hossein attached great importance to it. I carefully studied the project's data and experimental data, combined with some of my independent research results over the years, and discovered a technical path that might have been overlooked. During a project seminar, facing a group of frowning senior researchers and experts, I presented my ideas and solutions. Initially, no one took it seriously, and some even thought I was daydreaming. Consultant Sue: "Your idea is very bold, but theoretically speaking," an old professor tactfully expressed his doubts. "Theory is the foundation, but practice is the only criterion for truth." I presented my prepared data model and preliminary experimental simulation results. According to my calculations, this path can improve the stability of the material by at least 30%, and the cost is controllable. My confidence and detailed data silenced everyone present. Hossein sat in the main seat, looking at me with a deep gaze, without saying a word, but with a hint of imperceptible appreciation in his eyes. In the end, the project leader decided to allocate a team to try my proposal. As a result, in less than a month, good news came: the stability problem of the new superconducting material was successfully solved by experimenting according to my plan. All the data even exceeded expectations. The entire research institute was in an uproar. Those who once underestimated and doubted me now looked at me with a brand new and admiring gaze. "Consultant Sue, you are amazing. I didn't expect you to be so accomplished at such a young age. We were blind not to recognize your talent." Faced with everyone's praise, I just smiled faintly. Strength is always the best proof. Hossein came to the Research Institute in person to express his gratitude on behalf of the group. The look in his eyes was more ardent and proud than ever before. "My wife is indeed no ordinary person," he said to me in a low voice in a deserted corner, with a hint of teasing, but more of admiration. My cheeks flushed slightly, and I glared at him, but in my heart, I felt a hint of sweetness because of his recognition. I am not only Hussein's wife, Huanluomi's mother, but also Su Wanqing, an independent woman with her own career and value. This feeling is good. Misunderstandings were resolved. My career was back on track, and my relationship with Hossein was rapidly warming up. Driven by the divine assistance of little Nlomi and the deliberate matchmaking of the entire Hu family, Hossein was no longer the man who only cared in secret and was cold on the surface. He began to learn to express himself, although he was still not good at sweet words. His actions became more and more direct. He would remember my preferences and silently arrange everything. Knowing that I liked the osmanthus cake from the old shop in the south of the city, he would personally drive to queue up, just so that I could taste the freshest baked flavor. Knowing that I was tired from work, he would prepare hot water and comfortable loungewear before I got home. Knowing that I would occasionally feel depressed because of past experiences, he would awkwardly hug me, without saying anything, just using his body temperature and heartbeat to tell me that he was there. And little Nlomi is the catalyst for our relationship. The little one seems to know instinctively how to bring her mom and dad closer. "Daddy, Mommy said she wants to see the stars tonight. Can we all go to the rooftop terrace together? Mommy, Daddy worked so hard in the meeting today. Can you help Nlomi give Daddy a back massage? Mom and Dad, the teacher said there's a parent-child sports day on the weekend. You have to come with Nlomi and win first place." Under little Nlomi's various arrangements, our family of three interacts more and more naturally. On weekends, we go to the farm in the suburbs for picking. Hossein, dressed in casual clothes, carries little Nlomi riding a big horse, attracting a lot of attention. At night, we cuddle on the sofa to watch cartoons. Little Nlomi sits in the middle, holding my hand with one hand and Hussein's with the other. laughing heartily. Hussein even learned to be jealous. Once, a young male colleague from the research institute was particularly attentive to me, and Hussein, who came to pick me up after work, ran into it. On the way back, the air pressure in the car was frighteningly low. Who was that guy? Hussein's voice was icy. A colleague. I was a little confused. Stay away from him, he commanded domineeringly. Why? Just because. He glanced at me, but his ears were a little red. You are Hussein's wife. Looking at his childish and domineering appearance, I couldn't help but laugh. So, this is what it's like when an ice-cold president gets jealous. What are you laughing at? He was a little embarrassed and angry. Nothing. I leaned over and gently kissed him on the cheek. Mr. Hua, you're kind of cute when you're jealous. His cheeks instantly flushed red. But his eyes became deep and burning. The temperature inside the car quietly increased. Such warm daily life, accumulating day by day, fermenting little by little, between Hussein and me. It was no longer just the responsibility of being bound together because of our child. Something called love was quietly growing, deeply rooted, without us realizing it. Even Grandpa Hua saw it in his eyes and was happy in his heart. See, I told you, my great-granddaughter is a blessing. He held little Nwolmi and proudly showed off to Hu Jianjun and Hu Jianbang. Not only did she bring me a good granddaughter, but she also melted my icy grandson. Hu Jianjun and Hu Jianbang echoed with a smile, looking at our family of three, their eyes full of relief. The Hua family, because of me and little Nwolmi's arrival, became warmer and warmer, more and more like a real home. Happy days always make people relax their vigilance, but life in a wealthy family is never smooth sailing. As my relationship with Hussein got better and better, and my position in the Hua family became more and more stable, some hidden jealousy and unwillingness began to emerge quietly. This person is none other than Hussein's former rumored girlfriend Qin Feiyu. Qin Feiyu is the daughter of the Qin family, another wealthy family in the capital, and has known Hussein since childhood. One could say they grew up together. Rumors have always circulated that she was the designated granddaughter-in-law of the Hua family, although Hussein has never admitted his relationship with her. Qin Feiyu has always regarded herself as Hussein's fiancée. My sudden appearance, along with the Hua family's eldest great-grandson, completely shattered her dream of marrying into a wealthy family. Naturally, she hated me to the core. Initially, she only made sarcastic remarks and sneering comments about me at social gatherings. Her words filled with superiority and disdain. Miss Su certainly has good methods. Being able to find the Hua family with a child. Truly impressive. I've heard Miss Su's reputation in the Su family wasn't very good. I've always disdained paying attention to such things. Hussein even directly blacklisted her from all Hua family activities. Old Master Hua also declared, anyone who dares mention that Qin family girl in front of me again can get out of the Hua family. The family's protection of me only made Qin Feiyu even more jealous and insane. She began to resort to some underhanded tactics. First, she tried to bribe those in the research institute who were dissatisfied with me, hoping to steal my research results and frame me. However, the core members of the research institute had already been won over by my strength, and with the Hua family's strict protection, her plan failed. When one scheme failed, she came up with another. She actually set her sights on little Nwolmi. This day was the day of little Nwolmi's kindergarten parent-child activity. Hussein and I both took leave to spend a good day playing with our son. Halfway through the activity, little Nwolmi said he wanted to go to the restroom. Hussein went with him. I waited in place, but they were long in returning. An ominous premonition welled up in my heart. I immediately got up to look for them. As soon as I reached the vicinity of the restroom, I heard little Nwolmi's cries and Hussein's angry roar from inside. I rushed in and saw Hussein holding little Nwolmi tightly in his arms. while Qin Feiyu was being held down on the ground by two suddenly appearing Hu family bodyguards. Scattered on the ground were some candies and an open small spray bottle. What happened? I rushed over, took the sobbing little Nwomi in my arms, and checked to see if he was injured. Mommy. Little Nwomi was terrified, clinging tightly to my neck. That bad, aunt. She gave me candy and wanted to spray me with something. Daddy hit her. Kwasian's face was ashen, his eyes so cold they could freeze someone to death. Qin Feiyu. He looked at the struggling woman on the ground, his voice filled with murderous intent. You dare touch my son. Qin Feiyu's hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, with not a trace of her former debutante appearance. When she saw me, her eyes were filled with resentment. Su Wanqing. It's all you. You stole Cyan. Stole everything that belonged to me. If I can't have a good life, don't even think about it. She actually wanted to use laced candy to lure Nwomi, and even prepared an unknown spray. I was trembling with anger. You're completely insane. Take her away. Hwasyan ordered coldly. Notify the Qin family and have them come to get her. Also, tell them that all cooperation between the Hu family and the Qin family ends here. From now on, wherever Qin Feiyu is, I, Hwasyan, will not be. This was a complete ban on Qin Feiyu, even at the cost of breaking ties with the Qin family. The bodyguards dragged the screaming, cursing Qin Feiyu away. Hwasyan crouched down, gently wiping away the tears on little Nwomi's face. His voice was unprecedentedly gentle and filled with lingering fear. Nwomi, don't be afraid. Daddy is here. Daddy will protect you. Little Nwomi nodded, sobbing, her little hand tightly gripping Hwasyan's clothes. I watched the scene unfold before me, feeling a mix of lingering fear and anger. But even more so, I was moved. Hwasyan's protection of Nwomi, his defense of me, was so firm and unquestionable. This man, through his actions, was slowly filling in the 5 years of absence for our mother and child, giving us the most solid support. The Qin Feiyu incident was like a stone thrown into a lake, causing ripples, but it also made the Hu family's protection of me and little Nwomi even tighter, and made Hwasyan realize that he needed to give me and little Nwomi a clearer, more solid future. He started to become a little strange. He would often stare blankly at his phone screen, not knowing what he was looking at. Occasionally, he would ask me some inexplicable questions, like what color flowers do you like? What kind of ring do you think looks good? Once, I even accidentally saw him secretly looking at 100 Ways for an Overbearing CEO to Propose. Me. Mr. Hua, isn't your style a bit off? I pretended not to know anything, but in my heart, I felt a little expectant and a little amused. This man, who was a powerful and decisive figure in the business world, seemed to be unexpectedly pure and clumsy when it came to matters of the heart. Finally, on a weekend evening, the backyard garden of the Hu family's old house was meticulously decorated. The lawn was covered with fresh rose petals. Strings of colored lights hung down like a starry river, and the air was filled with a romantic atmosphere. Hwasyan was wearing a well-tailored white suit, holding a large bouquet of fiery red roses, standing in the center of the sea of flowers. He looked very nervous. Fine beads of sweat even appeared on his forehead. Little Nwomi, wearing a small and the same color scheme as mine, looked like a little gentleman, took my hand, and brought me in front of Hwasyan. Mommy, Daddy has something to say to you. The little guy winked at me, then ran over to where Grandpa Hua and second uncle and third uncle were. They were all hiding in the glass flower room not far away, spying. Hwasyan took a deep breath and handed me the roses. Wan. He rarely called me that, and his voice carried a hint of imperceptible tremor. I took the flowers, my heart beating a little faster. He looked at me, and in those deep black eyes, there was no longer coldness and alienation, but filled with fervent affection and nervousness. These past 5 years, I'm sorry, he started. His first words still an apology. I made you and Naomi suffer. I know. Nothing I say now can make up for the regrets of the past. But I want to spend the rest of my life loving you both and protecting you. He clumsily knelt on one knee, took out a velvet box from his pocket, and opened it. Inside was a simple yet dazzling diamond ring. Su Wanqing. He looked up at me, his eyes incredibly sincere, even with a hint of pleading. Are you willing to marry me? Marry me. Let me become your and Naomi's legal husband and father. Let me take care of you, protect you, and love you for the rest of my life. No flowery words, no earth-shattering vows, only his most sincere, most clumsy, and most earnest words. My eyes instantly welled up with tears, looking at the man in front of me who was nervous for me, lowering his stance for me, looking at the love and expectation in his eyes. I nodded vigorously, my voice choked with emotion. I do. He seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, carefully placed the ring on my ring finger. The size was just right. Then, he stood up and hugged me tightly. Wan. Thank you, he whispered in my ear, his voice with a hint of excitement and ecstasy. In the distance, the cheers and applause of old Master Hua and the others could be heard. Little Naomi ran over excitedly, hugging our legs. Mommy and Daddy are getting married. Naomi will have Mommy and Daddy's wedding. Husayan bent down and picked up little Naomi as well. Our family of 3 hugged tightly under the romantic starlight flower sea. At this moment, all the misunderstandings, hurts, and estrangements disappeared, leaving only full of happiness and expectations for the future. My life, because of the appearance of this man and this child, is finally complete. My wedding with Husayan was hailed as the wedding of the century. The Hua family mobilized almost all of their resources to give me a grand ceremony that would attract the attention of the entire capital, and even the world. The wedding venue was chosen on a private island under the name of the Hua family, with blue sea and sky, white sand and coconut groves. Like a fairy tale wonderland, the world's top wedding dress designer customized a unique wedding dress for me, studded with diamonds and pearls. Dazzling. Politicians, business tycoons, top stars came to congratulate. The scene was as grand as a royal ceremony. Old Master Hua even spent a lot of money to announce that 10 of the shares of Hua's group would be transferred to my and little Naomi's names as a wedding gift. As soon as this news came out, it shocked the entire business world again. Everyone knew that this newly promoted Mrs. Hua was not only blessed by her son, but also had her own strength, and was also held in the palm of her hand by the Hua family. On the wedding day, I took Husain's arm and walked on the flower-covered red carpet. The sun shone on us, warm and dazzling. Husain looked at me, his eyes so gentle that water could drip from them. Mrs. Hua, he whispered in my ear, his voice laced with amusement. Today is truly beautiful. I returned his smile, my heart overflowing with sweetness. Little Naomi, dressed in a smart little suit, served as our little flower girl, taking small steps with her short legs, seriously scattering petals, melting the hearts of everyone present. Grandpa Hua sat in the main seat, watching us, moved to tears. Second uncle, third uncle, and the rest of the Hua family also wore smiles of relief, under the witness of the pastor, and surrounded by the blessings of all our family and friends. Husain and I exchanged rings, vowing a lifetime commitment. I, Husain, take Su Wanqing to be my lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold. From this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, and to be faithful to you until death do us part. I, Su Wan Qing. Take Hwasian to be my lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, and to be faithful to you until death do us part. The moment he said I do, I saw tears glistening in his eyes. This man, so cold and powerful in front of outsiders, always showed his softest side to me. Following the wedding ceremony was a grand banquet and ball. Hwasian took my hand, and we danced the first dance. To the sound of the melodious music, we held each other close, as if the world only consisted of the two of us. Wan Wan. He lowered his head and kissed my forehead. Thank you for coming back to me. Thank you too. I looked up at his affectionate eyes. For finding me, and for falling in love with me. At the banquet, Grandpa Hwa held little Nwomi, accepting congratulations from everyone with a radiant face. This great-grandchild of mine is my lucky star. Look, she brought me such a wonderful granddaughter-in-law. Nwomi, from now on, you're the Hwa family's precious darling. Great-grandpa's got your back. Little Nwomi was spoiled silly, holding a small cake, her mouth stuffed full, still remembering to speak up for me in her childish voice. Grandpa also needs to protect Mommy. Mommy is a fairy. Yes, yes, yes. Protecting everyone. Protecting everyone. Grandpa Hwa grinned from ear to ear, looking at the lively and heartwarming scene before me. My heart was filled with gratitude and happiness. From my desperate escape 5 years ago, to this glorious wedding 5 years later, my life has experienced ups and downs, finally ushering in the most beautiful ending. All of this stemmed from that man who unexpectedly entered my life, and the crystallization of our love, my heaven-sent adorable grandson. The future is long, but with them by my side, I know that every day will be a sunny day filled with love and sunshine. I will walk on happily with him, our precious Nwomi, and this increasingly warm family.